Chairman, I forgot that part. I'll entertain a motion to adopt the agenda.
So motion.
So moved.
So moved.
Second motion.
All in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Approval of the minutes of June 10th and June 19th.
I move that both of those minutes be approved.
I've heard the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Election officer appointments, we have a total of 377 officers, 150 Democrats, 96 Republicans, and 131 unaffiliated. Is there a motion?
I'll move that we should I move? Approve them?
Just approve.
I move that we approve these officers.
I second the motion.
All those in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
That motion carries. The general registrar's report, Mr. Spicer.
Thank you. I have laryngitis, so I will save my voice for the questions that may come up later. And my deputy treasurer will give a report.
Okay. Does everyone have a copy?
Yes.
Good.
Oh.
My review may be a little bit, quicker than has been done in the past, perhaps. I think of all the voter registration details, I think the most important thing is that we added 13,000 voters last month, which is a lot of work on, Bushra and her team's part, and year to date, 37,000 voters were added. Of course, the numbers didn't go up that much because, of course, we have people moving out and so forth. The NCOA, the National Change of Address.
Before you go on, I
Yes.
have a question. On same-day registration, officer voting locations, are those, because this time period covers, the June primary? Are those, do those include the same-day registrations from the June primary?
Right.
That's that number,
Right,
229?
yeah.
Thank you.
600.
I also have a question.
Okay.
Could you help me find the line that shows registrations that were that came through government agencies aside from DMV? I know it's on here somewhere, but there are a bunch of government agencies that do that, but
Other,
We have
yes.
national court,
Be the
national
national.
court.
No, it's, I read it.
No, I don't.
VA paper, inform in person, office walk-ins, office walk-ins. Somewhere in here there is, I think the offices that we're required to do. Isn't that what you mean? Like
It
in
will be
terms-
considered in the by mail, the only that you receive it by mail, we don't receive it by.
so which line is that?
Is it,
It's
the
just-
by mail?
By mail.
Yes.
604.
The number is 604. Oh, I see.
Yeah.
VA paper form by mail delivered to the office.
Yeah.
So in other words, somebody gets registered by, I don't know what agency,
Human services.
yeah, they send it to you by mail.
Correct.
Okay.
And does that cover all government, like both federal and state agencies?
Yes. And we didn't have that many.
Yeah.
We have national form that we are receiving it, and is, we have one category, the one to the left, the second to the bottom, national paper form,
Yeah,
that's 174.
That's probably from the federal,
so those are from federal agencies.
right? So you would add those two.
And then the other one is from, it's Virginia, okay.
And then what is this federal postcard application?
That FPCA for the Yucaba citizen, FPCA federal.
Overseas and military.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And that's a federal form, they access
They
it,
have a
they
federal
get it
form.
online, yeah.
Something worth watching, by the way, but we'll get into it now.
Okay.
Well, I've always been concerned that, these things, just about anybody overseas can get them online, and then they register. Nobody get who they are. When for years now.
you know.
Well, I think, and by the way, this is even a more general comment. The report now is a lot more useful and user-friendly. You know, the fact that we're breaking these out is part of that, I think, Chris, in terms of, ambassador. In terms of,
Thank you, Counselor.
I get to be
I
grandma,
can-
what?
Never mind. The breakout here, I think, is very helpful, and we should be watching it. So,
Okay, before you start, Cheryl, through the next NCOA confirmation, and then there's a section for confirmation mailings, aren't those aren't those two sections the same thing?
Yes,
Because I noticed that in one of them, in the first one, we updated a total of 16,231, and then in the second one, it was a total of 16,231, so we just talked about the same thing twice, essentially.
right.
Okay, I spent a long time.
where is that?
This category and this category.
Oh, we're getting down to this one. Yeah, the other thing is, you said there was a net of 13. Are you going past July 31st? Is that?
No, it's June 1st and July 31st.
Page two.
So-
Page 2 at the top.
Oh, I see. This is when you add in all, I see, okay.
Right.
Got it.
Okay, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Oh, it's okay. Anything else, registration, ready? No. NCOA, National Change of Address. This is sent out by the Department of Elections, and it went to 23,281 Fairfax County voters. Of that 23,000 that went out, we received back 6,501 pieces of mail. And those are people who confirmed their address was the same, they confirmed they moved, or they were undeliverables. As a result of the mailing, 2,358 voters who moved out of state were removed, 728 who moved within Virginia were removed. And 6,231 were changed to inactive. Right, and so now they're gonna be inactive for 2 federal elections, and if we don't hear anything from them, then they will automatically be canceled. And of course, anyone who is, whose status is removed to inactive or they're canceled, they're taken off the permanent absentee list.
Let me ask you a question. Of those we got back that had a forwarding address, which of course they couldn't
Right.
forward, did we send an additional
Right.
mailing that said?
Yeah, we send them our standard form that
Yeah.
says.
Our form.
Right, our
This
form.
one.
Yeah.
This is the one we send them when we
Right.
get an address to say, sign here and tell us what you want us to do with it.
Right,
Thank you.
which has been really helpful
It
in
has.
keeping the list clean because it reduces the number of inactive voters.
Right.
Gets them out, they reply, I've moved to Colorado, that's great, we cancel them right away and they're done.
My understanding is that if someone gets a driver's license in another state, they have to cancel their Virginia license,
Right.
which is sort of a tip-off that they're not, that they move. Does that DMV data find its way to you guys?
Some do.
Yes.
Yes.
We do, so we have driver license, 700 people.
Surrender, yeah.
Yes, so we have a task within the cancellation, out of state.
Okay.
Out of state, that number, 2,613, include, I think, 98 driver license. 700 people who, based on the, 700 is driver license at DMV, we cancel their registration.
Okay.
Absentee by mail, we are up to 68,137 applications. So that's the number of ballots so far that will be mailed out on September 20, the first day of mailing for the absentee ballots.
I guess I have a question about this. Sorry.
That's okay. No, it's good.
59,000, which is most of them, are permanent.
Right.
Now, and actually it was mentioned in the governor's recent executive order, one of our safeguards has always been you have to request an absentee ballot.
Right.
So, is this a one-time thing where these people at some point requested it and requested to be on the list?
Right.
Or is this left over from COVID, and they bring everybody?
No, these are people who have marked, they've checked the box, or they've responded to one of the two mailings that we sent out and said, do you still wanna be on the absentee list?
Okay.
And so, actually, on the application form, there's a box to check, do you wanna be on the permanent list, or do you wanna receive, ballots for all future elections, like this where.
What happens if one of those people moves?
Then,
Let's say it moves,
right, then their
moves.
address is changed.
They move out of
Right,
Fairfax.
so they've changed the registration, then they're deleted from the permanent list.
That's.
What if they move out of state and don't file any paperwork? What happens then?
Well, then their ballot will come back to us if we've actually mailed them a ballot.
Okay.
It'll be returned undeliverable, we treat it like normal undeliverable mail.
What if there's someone living there, they can't get that?
Then, then, of course, it's in your mailbox.
They
And they're
commit
signed.
a crime if they did anything to.
Right, exactly. It's against the law, they'd be signing a name saying that I am signing the person's name. And now, for absentee, of course, they have to know the last four of the social and the year of birth.
Okay, thanks.
That, up here where it said a voter on a permanent absentee will be removed from the list, that's when you get the mailing back. We were talking about the earlier mailing.
Right.
The people, when they come off, our, one list, they come off both lists.
Okay.
Anything else, absentee? Good. Then we've provided some information on the executive order issued by the governor there. I'm sure everybody in the room now has read it already. Digested it. Polling place consolidation, there are several that have been approved by the board of supervisors, and those people will receive on page 6.
You just get
Did I miss a
Wow.
page?
Flew ahead.
Oh, confirmation, sorry. The,
Are we on page 4 now, or page 5?
No, we're on page 4.
Page 4, okay.
Process for voters who have moved, are there questions? Let's ask if
Yeah,
there are
let's-
questions, because we've just gone over much of it, for voters who have moved or voter challenges, are there any questions? I actually do have one observation. When we talk about inactive voters, we often assume that they will never vote. This year, a bunch of them will vote, because we have in this jurisdiction particularly a number of people who only vote every 4 years. And so if they've gotten on the list for some reason, they're gonna vote as inactive, or they were out last presidential and they come back. Because as you know, there's no requirement that you vote once you're registered. You just, if you keep not doing it, then you gotta tell us. But
Right.
some of it, don't be, people running polls should not be surprised if there are a number of people who come in to vote and they're on the inactive list.
right, and once you
Because the
vote,
system-
you go back to active.
Active, yes.
Right.
That's
So how does that work when if they come into the polling station, they're pulled up on the poll book, but it says inactive?
And Robbie can explain.
Sure, for an inactive voter who comes in, comes with a poll book, will show them as inactive, and what the voter has to do is to complete a affirmation of eligibility, to affirm that they still live at the address that we have on file, and then the active voting will make them an active voter again.
And they have to show that ID, of course,
Yes.
their own ID.
Hey, finish.
Yeah, I just wanted to
I
point that out.
have there was one sentence in here that I didn't understand. It says, in response to these inquiries that we've just been talking about, elect reminded all general registrars that individuals on the list of registered voters may not be challenged because they moved out of a jurisdiction or out of the state.
Right.
What does that, what does that mean?
That's the law. That comes.
Challenge in what perspective?
Challenging their, qualifications to vote, or their eligibility to vote.
Well, they're not eligible. right? If they move,
If I could, there's a procedure whereby ordinary citizens can say, I don't think that person should be allowed to vote here. And they have to follow those procedures, but elect is telling us, we don't want people using that procedure for this particular problem, for someone who has moved. And then elect's version at least is because we have the following procedures in place to take care of it, right?
Right. So.
okay. Thanks.
Okay, anything else on, we know about undeliverable voter registration mail, it's
Right.
undeliverable, that's
Right.
the thing you need to know about it.
Media.
And
This
it comes
voter
back.
flag is, inactive.
I have one question on, a correction on page 6. Okay. The Board of Supervisors did approve all that, although some of what we had the next week got caught up in the great misadventures on advertising. So we will not be able to advertise the 2 address corrections that we had for the last Board of Supervisors meeting because they were all canceled because they advertised them wrong. We can fix that because we'll just notify those. It was a Scrivener's error that's not posted wrong. We just got it wrong in the ordinance. It doesn't even show up anymore. So, but we can't, because they had to cancel everything from the 2 June meetings and do them again in September. That's within the 60 days that we can't affect anything. That's one. It's not it was, we were making sure that the Jim Scott, that the Providence Rec Center said Jim Scott Rec Center. And so now we're just gonna say the Jim Scott Providence Rec Center. But the Huntley precinct, I think, was not at St. John's Episcopal, I think it was St. Mark's. So I'm pretty sure it was St. Mark's.
John's changed its name.
Yeah, John changed his name to Mark. Under the Huntley precinct polling place changed from, second bullet down.
I think it is Mark.
I know it is. So it is St. Mark's. I don't want anybody confused and go to St. John's Episcopal, which is not anywhere near. Okay,
Okay, so we'll be mailing postcards as we always do, if there's any change to all the voters affected. Absentee voting at satellites, it's gonna be the same, pretty much, well, all the satellite locations are the same. We've got our same 45ers open 45 days before. North County, Mount Vernon, and of course the Government Center. The change this year from June, and I believe last year will be open on the Sunday, the week before the election, and will be open 3 Saturdays.
I'm sorry, which one will be open?
The Sunday, week
All
before the
13.
election.
On page 7 out of 10,
Yeah,
all 13, I believe it says,
Oh,
Right.
that's
will be open on Saturdays, 3 Saturdays,
3
and 1
Saturdays
Sunday.
and Sunday the 27th.
That was on the list we saw during, canvass.
The staff will be trained in September, and, we're ready to go on September 20.
The same day we mail, I have to mail
Yeah,
out.
same day.
That's the curtain raising.
It's the big day, election begins. You've got the resource allocation for the satellites, for the poll pads, DS200s, express votes, ballot on demand printers, and blank paper, the satellite voting locations.
These are on the agenda for later, but should we talk about them now, because we might as well talk about them now. One of the things that I noticed about the satellites, and I wanna be sure we all understand the column that says on the satellites, blank ballot paper for VOD. Because we use ballot on demand, this is paper, these are not ballots. VOD is ballot on demand, it's not some kind of exercise. And so, this is paper, and I assume, Robbie, that if you run out of paper one place, you can use the same paper at all our satellites. So it's not a problem like it's going to be when I looked at and thought about as we move to, the ones for election day. One of the things we all know about elections, and this is my speech for the day, is that every election day, we read about 10 o'clock that ballots, or no, about 3 o'clock, and somebody ran out of ballots. Somewhere in the state, somewhere in the country, and we always wonder how in the world they can run out of ballots. That is the major offense on an election day. So I always look at the ballot allocation extremely closely so that we don't make news that way. And as I did this, I was extremely dismayed because since the records that we have to go back, November 2020 is almost irrelevant because we had so few people vote on election day and compared to the other 2 ways to vote. And so it goes back even further, and one of the things that I noticed as I looked at this list is the precincts are very different now from when they were then. There's, in some of these places, there's no data. Well, some of them are actually just in the district, and there is, but the data really isn't the way the precinct is now. So we have a lot of changes. This will be the first presidential that we have no excuse absentee, and that makes a difference because more people vote early. At the same time, it's also the first president. Since all this data, we've had redistricting, and so it's all very different. And the third issue, of course, is that we have to report by precinct. And this means because we have to report by precinct, we used to on presidentials. If you ran out of ballots, we went and got some from you and gave them there. We can't do that anymore. We have, remember what our sample ballot book looked like? It was about that thick, and we had 267 different ballots. So you can't share. So we have to have enough that go right to that precinct. And finally, of course, we have SDRs. And as I was looking through here, and Robbie and I talked about this, I hit university. And university is in Braddock. It's 134 down there on the list. And it says that, gosh, we're gonna order 1,600 ballots. Now that we have SDRs, we could well have 600 SDRs in that precinct because it's now the largest university in Virginia. The kids will be there. They can just register and vote right there. All the years that I've been watching, let's see, there were 200 and some 2 years ago. So we have to adjust that, and Robbie knows that. The difficulty with all of this is that we don't know, these are the unknown unknowns. We don't know yet what we don't know about who's gonna need what on election day. The corner of the world that I live in is so much different than it was in 2016. There are whole buildings of people, I think, that have not registered to vote, and we don't know that they won't. The other thing is that's true of that they won't come on election day. We'd love to have them come, but we don't know when they're gonna do it. And so I would like to make, if I could, the following motion to be sure that we put in place some things to address this problem, and they're very general, because there are some ways to address it. I would ask Robbie and everybody if, for one, we would follow the voter registration to see if there are any spikes in any particular precinct, to see if we need to make adjustments. If all of a sudden, Reston 2, I believe, has a whole block that wasn't there last time, if all of a sudden they register. If we have in early voting and to follow the activity, to see if we have SDR activity in spikes in a precinct, to keep track of if there's a lot happening differently there. And also, since we have ballot on demand, and we could delegate, send them to precincts on election day if we run out of ballots. It seems to me we need to do the following. We need to be prepared to do that, and so I would add that to the motion. And be sure that we know what the procedures are and can follow them to make them available, what those procedures are, so that they can be sent to the precincts. I think if we keep track of this, it will mitigate possible problems. Will we solve them all? No. Or I hope so, but I'm not gonna bet on it. But I think we need to watch for all the differences that are here in this presidential that we have never had in a presidential, and they're not just our procedures, they're the world out there. And so I would ask, I would move that we take those procedures, we establish those procedures so that by October 15th, if we have some really different things occurring that we need to know about, that if we need to, we know there are places that we think we'll need to order more ballots, we can do that, because that'll be early enough. We probably won't have to do that if we can use a ballot on demand, but if we know something is dramatically different than we thought it was, that'll give us a chance to do that, and I would so move.
Just a little discussion.
Yeah.
Sure.
discussion.
Well, you have to have a second before you get a discussion.
I'll second your motion.
Thank you.
Okay. And this is addressed, I don't know, Robbie or to you, but in 2016, did we have any precincts that got close to 100%?
No, no.
Yeah, so on average in 2016, I believe it was 67% was the turnout on election day of active registered voters. And that was,
Do you have a feel for like,
Before it was
what
before the
was-
voting.
who got the closest to 100%?
It would typically be Green Spring would be the one.
Oh, Green Spring.
That's the highest. They're an outlier.
That's
In
it.
general, the highest gets to about 75%.
And that was before early voting.
Right, before the introduction of, so about a third of voters now have moved to voting before election
And
day.
I guess one question I have as part of considering this motion, do you normally, evaluate the state to adjust your forecast up until a certain point and have a cutoff?
Sure, I can speak to that or, yeah. So in putting together the resource allocation, the initial allocation that we presented at a board meeting, we looked at a wide variety of factors. We included in this allocation the turnout in past presidential, just as a point of reference for everyone to know. Here's what it has been in the past. Most likely, it will not exceed that on election day this time because of the introduction of no excuse early voting. We used to see that of the
Excuse me,
voters.
unless there's a surge in SDRs.
Right, and
That's
even with the
much
surge in
better.
SDRs, even on the highest possible projection, if we had 25,000 SDRs in this election, which is probably twice as many as we get, that's still a fraction of the overall number of voters that would vote on election day.
And they're scattered throughout the precincts.
Correct.
Well, a lot of
Except
them.
maybe-
Except if they're not.
Except university or, yeah,
Except-
okay.
except-
No, I'm not questioning the motion, I just, the other thing is, you can actually look at the early voting to do a subtraction on some precincts.
You could.
That's why I was just asking, if you normally have, if the motion is to continue to,
They don't normally do that.
okay,
This is it.
if the motion is
This is it.
to go for a longer period of fine tuning the estimate, I just wanted to.
Yeah, again, this is the initial resource allocation. We do monitor those numbers. In the past, we have made adjustments or done subsequent ballot orders. If the numbers that we see in early voting deviate from what we think they're going to be.
Okay, here's my other question.
So I'm happy to.
Here's my other question.
Sure.
How realistic is print on demand? Because if we can actually make that work, have a procedure, that's gonna solve a lot of problems with the forecast. That's almost a
Yes.
complete solution.
Yeah,
If it's realistic.
The past few years, as an office, we've prepared a number of ballot demand machines, between 20 to 40, that we stage here on election day to be ready in the event of any given precinct having.
Then you have the transport.
Correct,
Right,
we have
so-
individuals on standby ready to deliver them to any given location.
Do you feel like confident that that can happen? Let's say 10 precincts are wildly out of whack. Can you print those and get them over there?
Yeah, absolutely. We can print
Okay.
those ballots very quickly. Our
Okay,
team
good.
has done it before.
And I agree with the
After
idea of
election,
having a
it's just
procedure.
But
Ahead of
one
time.
Yes, because one of the things I wanna be sure we do is that there's no question about the security of those, about
Right.
that we're following procedures, all the procedures that we need to do with those.
Okay.
So there's no question about the validity of the outcome.
Okay, those are my questions.
That's the answer.
One more question. You mentioned among your recommendations, monitoring to see if there's a surge of registrations in particular precincts.
Yes.
Is that something you can easily do?
Yeah, absolutely. We can download the number of voters in each precinct. We do that periodically, at least every month. So if we go back 8 years ago, between July to November, it was on average 4% increase in the active registered voter count.
Okay.
The thing that I am particularly concerned about, there are three sort of different areas. There's one of military has been able to vote absentee to do SDRs essentially, always. We've moved the precincts around enough in South County that I'm not quite sure that the data's gonna match, but that's one that's there. The second one is along the Dulles corridor, there are literally buildings now occupied that didn't exist 4 years ago and may not have registered. And that's a substantial number of people if they decide, if SDRs becomes a really good thing to do, like I suspect that the students on George Mason will do on election day, because it's closed, but they're there, that they're just all gonna go. I wanna be sure that we've thought about how we're going to deal with those situations. The other one is, we have, as a senior citizen, I keep track sort of the new, facilities for senior citizens. We have a new Green Spring essentially, going in Robinson Precinct, which is partly there, which is not one we would think about being in flux, but it may well be substantially different. So I want us to be able to think in advance of what could happen, because it's been so long since, well, so much has changed. It's all different this year, folks. Any other discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes. Thank you very much. I'll sleep better tonight. Anything else on allocations? No one. Okay, Cheryl, on to logic and accuracy. I'm for both.
September 10, we will begin the LNA tests for the early voting satellite sites. On the 12th, the first testing is, of course, for the 3 that opened first. The second, on the second run for the satellites will be for the, I'm sorry. Poll pads are first on Tuesday. Thursday is the early voting satellite sites, the 45ers. And then the remaining 13 satellite sites, the LNA test is on Tuesday the 24th. Wednesday will be for the mail ballots. Also on Tuesday is for the election day. And Sunday is all the poll pads, Sunday before the election, all the poll pads get tested. We're gonna assign approximately 3,700 election officers to serve in the precincts on election day. This number just blows away the registrars and staff and the rest of the state. They
Actually,
can't
it's larger than
imagine.
Highland County, but who's counting?
They can't imagine how we manage that number of people, train them, keep track of them. But Gretchen and her team do a great job. On National Poll Worker Recruitment Day, we got 100 new applications. That was good. And we're gonna onboard between 1,000 and 2,000 new election officers for this election. Training.
I just question. Matt,
Yeah.
so
Yes.
I know we're always striving for parity, and I
Yeah.
know our population will never exactly reach it, but roughly, how's it looking for this one?
Roger,
Gretchen,
applications
is that-
or available officers.
Just your hunch on where we're gonna end up.
So 4 years ago, we had a similar number of election officers that we signed for election, 100 more. And of that, on election day, a little over 25% represent the Republican Party, and about 55% represent the Democratic Party.
That's probably where we'll be this time.
We're hoping to improve upon those numbers this time. Right now, I believe we have a little bit better availability than we did 4 years ago in terms of the availability from both parties. Definitely will improve upon what we had 4 years ago.
Next. Okay, training's gonna be again this month for election officers. We're gonna be offering more than 100 in-person class sessions. They're listed out in the report. And we'll be able to train, we'll have room for 4,000 attendees, so plenty of space. It's important having the in-person class sessions. especially with the new election officers. We're gonna have several open houses, and the election officers really enjoy those, and the chiefs. It's hands-on, they get to ask questions, and, Gretchen and Sean Rogers and their team do a terrific job of setting them up. The chiefs linger and linger to ask you questions.
Do you serve alcohol?
Is that not
What
budget?
about Sunday?
We have to ask, Eric if it's in his budget. And then we have online briefings for officers, for, the provisional specialists, and there'll be 2 in every precinct, this is really important, are the accuracy on the provisional envelopes is getting better and better, fewer mistakes, and that's thanks to, Robbie and the whole team, the training, the things they've come up with, the manuals, how we're enforcing this with the online briefings. And then, of course, there's chief briefing and the regular election officers briefing. Sarah Crowett resigned from Communications Division Chief, to take a job in the federal government. And we're not going to fill that position before election day, just simply because it's too much, and anyone would come in the middle of the midst of everything and not really, be well versed in what's going on, so we're just gonna wait, we'll do fine. We did fine before without a communications chief for how many years, we'll be fine. Pat Ferguson sadly is retiring after 13 years. She's been our FOIA manager and has done a fantastic job, so we'll miss her. But she felt the time has come. We're recruiting for a financial specialist to replace Teresa, whose last day is next week. And Mira, her assistant, will be able to cover quite a lot of that. And we'll fill the FOIA position, we hope immediately after election day as well, FOIA communications. We've received 9, Virginia FOIA requests, 2 national, voter registration requests since the June 10th board meeting. Bringing the total to 34 FOIA and 13 NDRA requests. And we started, our outreach efforts are gonna be limited. We're working on it, it's good. We're gonna have a palm card, it's gonna be printed soon, that we'll distribute. You know, our regular palm, we call it palm cards, it's about that big. But it has the deadlines on it, all the important deadlines, the satellite voting locations and times and schedules and so forth. And they're just sized the same as a brochure, to fit in brochure holders. We send them to all the libraries, the board of supervisors' offices, we give them to League of Women Voters. We get them out wherever we can, to advertise about the elections. And we've started working on the sample ballot brochure, and hope to get that out. Certainly, our aim is to get it out by September 20, when the absentee ballots go out, but certainly before the 1st of October.
And all
Oh, yeah, and we have return requested on that. And as we did last year, we immediately find out which addresses are on the NCOA list. We do that through our mail house, because he functions as a mail center. So he finds out immediately, and we give him a letter to print in envelopes, and he sends out that letter to people to their forwarding address immediately. So while we're gonna get back the hard copies eventually from the post office, we're on it very quickly. And so if those people get that back to us, we can get their names off of the voter rolls before the election.
And I assume you're posting the palm card information on the website as
Yeah,
well?
it's already there, yeah, it'll be there.
Do you have a Twitter account?
We don't,
Oh,
because everything has to go through the county.
okay.
So the
Just
county
curious.
does, the county does it. It's-
That's right, it's X.
It's, Fairfax.
Never mind.
Fairfax votes. Fairfax votes.
Fairfax votes.
Right, and we're going to endeavor to make it more active through the election season. But we'll see, they've lost a staff member also that was our liaison, so, we'll strive to do. Let's do this endeavor.
Well, I guess I'd like to commend Pat and Teresa for their service and thank them. I did feel sorry for the office when I read that whole loss of talent. I was almost moved to volunteer to help in the FOIA responses, but I held back, but I feel for you guys and,
I think you don't need the eligibility.
probably not. But I hope everyone gets a really good vacation after the election. I think that's important.
No, you mean after.
I'm actually being serious about that. Well, you know, last year we had the special election in January. I don't know if that's happening again. But, I think it might be.
And if I could just make a comment, I mean, I defer to, you know, the staff management on this, but, you know, do consider, I don't know how the personnel process works here, but do consider advertising for that, communications position. It seems to me that still need to just let the matter go, even if we don't finish interviewing before the election. I'd encourage you to, you know, keep a few weeks out.
Unless that creates more work, you know, when you don't have the time to interview or what have you.
Sure.
But along those lines, I don't know if it's permissible to hire sort of temporary administrative help who could work, you know, help with some of the administrative stuff, but there's gotta be room in our budget for that.
Actually filled, we had 8 positions that Sarah, before she left, filled in a part-time capacity to help with it, so that's
Right.
new, but that's helpful.
Right.
Outreach, they went to citizen ceremonies, sort of thing, so we're.
Anything else? Is that it? Other questions? Okay, new business, electoral board reports. I've already essentially reported. I don't have anything.
Yeah, I think you reported, and I think you also effectively covered the 4th bullet of new business.
Yeah, I'm
With
just.
your motion?
Yeah, so, but it's your turn. Let's start with you. Electoral board reports, do you have it?
Well, what I want to report that Governor Youngkin has issued an executive order, which is not going to be a surprise to
I
anyone,
think he just, they mentioned.
but I actually have a motion coming out of that.
Okay, we'll come to that.
What's that?
It's on the agenda.
Yeah,
so we'll
yeah,
come to that.
we should do this in order.
Okay. Anything else?
Nope.
Ding.
Nothing from you, thank you.
Okay, moving on to the ADA compliance. You have in front of us, I love it, Precinct 100 Patriot 2024. This is a new requirement that all our polling places, no, it's not a new requirement that they be accessible. It's a new requirement that we certify they're accessible every year and that we look. And Beth has been out looking at precincts after this is the checklist that the rovers used. And if, let's see Beth, if I can, the ones that apply for the accessibility, if they check no, you went out and looked at them.
Yes.
And so she has been looking at doors and windows and all kinds of things, to be sure that they do. And there is probably a document that we need to sign.
Yes, it's in.
It's in here somewhere.
Secretary knows always on that, once she
Yes.
makes a motion.
So, I will move that we approve elect ADA compliance confirmation that states all polling places in the locality stated above. You have it. Oh, look at that.
I need to read it.
Yes,
I mean, read
why
it
don't you
aloud?
go ahead and make the
No,
motion?
I mean,
that's
okay,
good.
that makes sense. I move to approve elect ADA compliance confirmation that states all polling places in Fairfax County have been assessed for accessibility using an Americans with Disabilities Act checklist provided either by the Virginia Department of Elections or by the U.S. Department of Justice, that the ADA checklist for each polling place has been filed and will be maintained with the records of the local electoral board in accordance with the New Freedom of Information Act, and that pursuant to section 24.2-310C, all polling places in the locality stated above are currently compliant with the requirements of the ADA, the Voting Accessibility for the Elderly and Handicapped Act, and the Virginians with Disabilities Act. Yeah. So there's your motion.
So, are we, and we're, second, we're relying on, that went out, and these are the ones that won.
Right. I visited and looked at the brick and mortar piece. A couple of, ADA, concerns had to do with the placement of the express vote. Those will be handled by in trading, so.
So we're relying on you.
Yes, and the Rovers, who did an amazing job in, not only in the March presidential, but in the June primary to complete all of these, for the 233 or so buildings we use.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any more discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Next item, claims of non-citizen voting.
Oh, that's mine, yes. I'll try to make this brief, but please have questions. A month or two ago, I learned that the local Republican election integrity working group, through publicly available information, had come up with a list of 66 registrants who had been removed from the rolls. This is a function of elect doing its routine job where it sends names of people to registrars based on information it gets, usually from DMV, but also from SAVE. As I understand it, the staff here don't know where that information comes from. They simply get essentially an instruction to elect. And the procedure is that the staff here sends a form to the last address, giving this person the opportunity to affirm that they're a citizen, in which case action stops. There is no response. The person is removed from roles. In any case, the thing of concern about this list of 66 is that it was clear. I asked the staff here to tell me, is this Republican information accurate? And he told me yes, and there were records of all these people having voted. So that begs the question that they were removed from the rolls as appropriate. Some weren't because they affirmed they were citizens. But of the ones who didn't affirm they were citizens, there's concern there. Now, we know from experience that very often these people are citizens who checked the wrong box on the DMV website.
Or didn't check in.
Well, yeah, that's right. But we have no way of knowing. Elect, I believe, does. Or somebody in Richmond ought to. So many of these are probably inadvertent and innocent, but I feel uncomfortable just assuming that it's all innocent and no one wants to look or know if there is any malfeasance going on. So I urge the registrar to consider sending, after I saw the governor's executive order, I urge the registrar to consider sending communication to the Attorney General of the Commonwealth, noting that we had these cases had been flagged, and encouraging them to take a look at this. They have the investigative resources and skills and authorities. This office doesn't really. So I put that to the registrar and wanted to let you know that I had that conversation. So if you all want to talk about it now, if you want to have the registrar say anything about it.
Do you have a motion?
No, not yet, because, I wanted to talk to you all about it, and we
Okay.
do that in this setting, I can't, call you up and talk about it.
I'd like to hear if you can talk long enough to tell us.
I was very concerned when this came to my attention. Of course, we know each month we remove individuals, as you indicated, that we get information from elect. So I've consulted with our attorneys, because I definitely think we need to do something. And so I've been trying to determine, should we refer to the Commonwealth's attorney, or to the Attorney General, or to elect? Both of these, there are 17 individuals who later on said they get pre-registered, so they said they are citizens. But that leaves 49 individuals who voted, and it appears they may not have been citizens, although they were on our voter list. So I think what I need to do is all three, refer to the Commonwealth Attorney, refer to the Attorney General, and refer to elect. But I think we need to go further than that, and is to have a procedure for the future, that each month, when we remove individuals from our list, for this reason, we refer every one of those every month to the Commonwealth Attorney and to the Attorney General to elect.
So that actually overlaps with the motion I was going to bring up, because I think we do need a procedure. And one of the reasons we need a procedure is so that it doesn't look like we're being selected. In fact, we're not being selected, right? We send some people to the OAG and others not in the same situation. So we need to have a procedure that treats everyone the same. And I do think that I think this is a live issue, because if we're if you look at the great chain of the electoral system, we only have a part of it, but our part is the part where we actually have the immediate information of a prima facie case that somebody has voted that you shouldn't have.
Well, if I may be.
Yeah.
We actually don't have, all the information, that's.
I'm not saying we do. I'm saying
The
that
state has more than
But
we do.
we have the information that's prima facie, it looks like there's a problem. It's up to them, as you said earlier, to investigate and determine whether it's something they want to pursue. It's not our job to do that. But I think when we're presented with information that suggests that there's been a non-citizen who voted, we have an obligation to do something other than just take them off the list. And I think our obligation is to refer them without real significant comment, just here are the facts, to the Office of Attorney General, to the Commonwealth Attorney.
Both?
I would do both, and elect if they want. I don't know if elect would like, the Office of Attorney General of the Commonwealth can check in with elect too. But the point is that I think as a matter of routine, anyone who meets those criteria should be referred for investigation. And
If I could also,
Yeah.
when you use that word refer, does that have particular legal meaning?
no, what it means is information came to our attention, and we're sending it to people who have jurisdiction to investigate and decide if they want to take action under their authority. That's all we're doing. And I think that if we don't do it, they're never going to find out about it, and we're effectively dropping the ball, because we're the ones who have the information, readily available within the normal operation. But it's not our job to investigate. It's our job to say, prima facie, we've got a problem. You guys figure out, you OAG, Commonwealth Attorney, figure out if you want to do anything about it. Their answer may be, we don't want to do anything, or they may choose to investigate and take action. In some cases, that's really not our purview. But I think our purview is, the information is coming to our attention, or is readily available to us, and is within our purview. And if we don't do it, then the law's a dead letter, and we're playing whack-a-mole, just taking people off the list without regard to how did they get on the list, and what did they do while they were on the list that they shouldn't have done.
I should add, if you don't mind, that our procedure, there would be some work involved, but I've spoken to Busher, who would be responsible for this. Each month, and actually we're gonna get the information because of the executive order on a daily basis now. But I think we would do this on a monthly basis. We would only refer individuals after we researched them, we found that they did in fact vote.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the way, and this is consistent with the Attorney General's executive order.
The Attorney General,
The Governor's executive order,
which,
which says, you know, they shall be referred. The governor clearly has
isn't
an
that the
intention.
code, currently?
What's that?
Isn't the current code, they shall be referred?
Not shall.
It
It's, I think it should.
depends on which code provision you're looking at. One of them's a shall. But I don't think it's, you know,
I get, but what does the code say about who we should refer them to, is I can.
oh, the code says shall be referred to the Commonwealth's attorney in the county in which they sought to register.
So what would we, I guess if we refer them everywhere, everybody can say, well, they're doing it. Why would we do it, do what the code says?
We can do, I think we have to do at least what the code says. The question is whether we also want to refer them to the Office of Attorney General. And the executive order specifically calls out the Office of Attorney General in that very passage.
If it says Commonwealth's Attorney or the Office of the Attorney General.
It says the Office of Attorney General has authority. It doesn't say that we shall refer, we must do it because that's not what the code says, but it certainly hints that the governor, more than hints, it implies that the governor would like to see and would welcome referrals to the Office of Attorney General.
I would welcome sending both, and if we do discover that they're both pointing to the other, then we can adjust our procedure.
That's a good idea.
I would also like to say that this was not a quick decision. It's been, as you said, a couple months since we got this, and I've consulted with attorneys. I actually have a duty to refer it if I find, and so I'm not finding it's something that there's criminal action, but I'm finding that there's something there that should be investigated. So it's my duty, as I understand, as general registrar.
That's what I've been saying, and I agree with that.
What the office, what the EO says is, the Code of Virginia, 24.2, blah, 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 additionally requires said registrars to immediately notify the Commonwealth's attorney for their jurisdiction of this alleged unlawful conduct, period.
Right, and then the next sentence.
Additionally, the Office of the Attorney General has full authority to enforce election laws, that's all of them, not just this, pursuant to the Code of Virginia 24.2,
Right.
2-104.
So I read that as an invitation.
I read it as they get to do anything, all, not specifically, but
Well,
we're talking about this.
I read it as saying they shall refer to the Commonwealth's attorney. That's what,
Yes,
that's what the code
that's
says.
what I'm saying.
And then the next sentence is an invitation, I read it as an invitation to also refer to the Office of Attorney General as a backup. Because if the Commonwealth attorney doesn't want to do something, the Office of Attorney General says they may wish to do so.
Having lived through some of this once on a different matter, there have been things referred to various Commonwealth attorneys, not this one, who have a certain amount, it takes a while to investigate. Because one of the things on that list we discovered, and it's been a long time, I've kind of forgotten about, half of them really were registered. And the registration had been, as you know, there's all kinds of ways to research this. But the code is pretty clear about the GR's requirement to refer it to the Commonwealth's attorney. I don't see that for the Attorney General as well.
Well, no, I agree. The code doesn't say that, but I think the executive order invites it.
And the code doesn't say we can't.
No, it doesn't say we can't. Plus the code doesn't say much consistent about elections, does it?
Right.
Although the governor did summarize the law pretty clearly here, he's managed to,
And
did a good job of saying what the law is.
right, and there's also a second issue, and also I'm sort of in the middle of your discussion point and not my motion. So procedurally,
See, this is because we can't talk, so we
Yes.
independently did similar
so
things.
right now I don't have a motion because I'm going to wait for you to finish the discussion.
Well, one just more note in passing for you two, because we discussed this a couple times before. throughout this whole thing, we listed the 66, and then we got many other names that have come up since then.
Whoa,
It was, do you want to explain that?
I think what you're saying is that the governor referred to 6,303 that have been removed in the state since January 2022. We have 985 that have been removed.
Right.
That's just a different.
Of that 6, our share was 985.
Correct.
wait a minute, what are we talking here? I thought we were talking about the 49 people that.
Right now, we are.
Right, but I'm just on a parenthesis here, there's other things going on. Throughout this whole thing, I have not been able to see the information that the staff are working with, because it remains, you called it perhaps tribal knowledge, maybe there's a regulation, but there's this impression that board members not only not allowed to have various accounts, but may not even see information derived from theirs. And I know that, the staff was going to talk to our lawyers some more. I don't know if they ever got around to that.
Yeah, we saw, did you get that
Yeah,
email?
we got an email on it.
We got an email yesterday from Marty,
Oh, I didn't see that.
because he probably sent it to your Fairfax.
Right, it should work.
I think this could help as a point of clarification, because I can see each of you.
Yeah,
And so, and I think it brings together what Kate, what you said. To me, the way I see it is, I can't refer this to the Attorney General. I refer to I think I have a duty to refer to the Commonwealth's Attorney, which I think is your point. And I was simply saying on a regular basis, I could say to the Attorney General, if we choose to do that, we referred this for your information. So I don't think I'd be referring it to the Attorney General. I would be saying, I've referred this to the Commonwealth's Attorney, but I'd also like to bring it to your attention. This is going on, because I think on the state level, so much.
but what I would recommend is that you refer it to the Commonwealth,
Right.
and copy the Attorney General's office in the same email.
Yes.
Is this going to be a public list then?
Yeah, so I've given that some thought, because I don't think it should be, because it's under
It's
investigation.
investigated,
And
yes,
I
that's my
don't see,
question.
I don't see it as a public list. I'm not even sure it's available on the FOI, although I would defer to Marty,
Well,
somebody.
their raw data includes dates of birth, so that would probably.
Well,
No, I've sort of been out of this loop. You have a list now of 49 people, right? And when was the last vote, 2023?
It was longer, but, it was over the past several years.
It's over how many years?
Several years, let's see, we have it right here, there's first
Over 24.
2016, 2017, it's over a number of years that these individuals voted.
So this 49, and what's the most recent one?
There was voting in 21, it's just all over the place. I don't see anything more recent than that.
Remember, this
Oh,
is
2022.
22.
And my concern, maybe this is the same, my concern, why it's taking so long in this is, I don't want it to seem that I'm accusing or finding any guilt, here are these names, because many of them may have been just a mistake. But I think now the way that I see it is I'm not making that determination, I'm just saying, something happened, we were told to take them off the list. They had 14, well, first they had 14 days, the individuals had 14 days to respond, they didn't respond, they could have been on vacation, who knows? But that's what we're referring to. And
but
then-
if they respond after the 14 days, you would still take that, right?
Well, after the 14 days, they would have been removed, automatically removed from the list.
Or did anyone write to you after the
We had no way,
Yeah, they just have to complete a new application, apply again.
Okay.
We actually looked, because, and I don't want to make it confusing, but we have this group of what is now 49 individuals. As Chris said, separately, we have 985 individuals that were removed since January 2022. We just didn't take a lot of time, but today we looked at those from January and February. And you did some research, I think it was February, there were 20 individuals, February of 2022, that were removed. And I think you find 4 of them were military, and 5 of them have re-registered somewhere in the Commonwealth of Virginia since then.
well, some of those I think are probably on the original 66 had re-registered as well, I would think.
17.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we're not referring that.
And that's where I want to be very consistent. And so I think the reason we would do something about the 66, if we will, is because we're provided with this information and we should take some
Even
action.
at 49.
I'm sorry, now 49. And then I really think we need to have some procedure, but I'm definitely, listening to what you say. What should we do going forward? To be
Right.
consistent, to be fair, to not be judgmental, but also to take some kind of action.
We referred, and I'm trying to remember, Beth, we referred back in 16, several people, a whole list, and discovered, for investigation, because we really do not have the ability to investigate.
We don't have the authority.
Well, there are some things that, yes, we do not have the authority to do a lot of it, but
We can do
we can
some,
check it.
yeah.
We can
In
do
the
some,
course
we
of our-
investigate all the time when we, right?
In the course of
send them
our
in.
duties, yes.
And we discovered, I think none of them were prosecutable. This was for something else, because they, to your point and to other points, they had either, never gotten the mail, or they'd been out of, for whatever reason, the 14-day limit is pretty dramatic, and there were like 5 left, and they were here. But the law does seem clear that that the registrars should refer these 49 to the Commonwealth's attorney. I don't see any way around it.
So, right, no, I think we're in agreement. Now, I refer with Rich what planning to do, I'm happy with that. He needs a vote, but if you'd like to do.
I don't think so either.
No, I don't think we need to vote. My motion is gonna not relate to the 49 specifically. It's gonna be about having a procedure.
Okay.
So,
Then I'm done with my agenda item.
okay,
Okay. Well, that was fun. Is there more fun to be had?
Yeah.
I say my
Okay.
voice.
your voice sounds good. Come back, yes.
Response to executive order, now you're,
Yeah, and the discussion we just had is gonna shorten this up, but.
oh, I doubt it.
Oh. All right, so I looked carefully at Executive Order 35 from the governor, and lots of stuff in here, I think we're already doing, you know,
It's the law.
yeah.
I mean, the governor's EO is pretty much what
Right.
the law is. I thought he did a great job of summarizing it,
Yeah.
making it sound like what we do. I mean, it's what we do. I
Very
don't know,
much
the
like
governor
what we
gets it. He knows what we do.
We- There were 2 items though, one, and I don't, I'm sure you're gonna tell me under Robert's rules, we gotta separate these out. One relates to the citizenship issue and the other relates to this, election-related offenses notice or information.
Okay, well, where
You want
are,
me to separate them?
well, let's find out what they are.
Okay.
And what them are.
Well, let me start, so, well, we've already had
What
this,
page do you want?
page 4. Page 4 of the Executive Order 35.
Oh.
Not
I
the
don't have
registrar,
that.
not the registrar's report. Actually, we have a copy, we can give you a copy.
Actually,
Oh.
We've already been talking about this, so, you know, there's a section called referral for false claims of citizenship, which reminds us about the registrar's duty, and also, I think, invites you know.
You're big on that advice stuff. You need to have a permit.
Okay, so what I would suggest is, or here's my motion, okay? And I guess I'll make it on this topic and then we'll go to the
Okay.
notice later. On the non-citizen, the false claims or potentially false claims, prima facie, it looks like there's a problem, we don't know for sure, but on those cases where you canceled, where the Office of Elections has canceled someone as a non-citizen, and then they would, what I'm proposing is they would routinely research this, you know, did this person vote? And then, if so, refer them for investigation to the Commonwealth's attorney with a copy to the Office of Attorney General. And I'm suggesting that there be an SOP, so that there's no question of selectiveness, we didn't look at everybody, we didn't do this for everybody, we just treated everyone the same. And I would also recommend a one-time look back to some practically feasible, I don't wanna overload the office with this.
This is Virginia, how about
100 years?
Well,
No.
it's Virginia, we do everything.
I was
No.
gonna say January 2022.
You know, I don't know what the numbers are. that you would have to research, but January 2022 would be reasonable, the 985. So, and maybe that's put on the back burner until after the election, but going forward, each month you would do it, so that you would do a one-time look back and then every month. And the SOP would tell everyone what it is we're doing. That's a public document. However, and we would get advice from Marty on the FOI status. My vision is that you would not disclose that people are being referred for investigation, but I don't know the way that well. The information being sent may be public and may be FOIAble, but the cover letter that says we're referring this for investigation probably is blacked out. That's my vision here. It would have to be confirmed. So that's my motion.
With the number of people being referred, I don't think that's something that could be released perhaps.
Absolutely, yeah.
Let me ask this question. If these people have already been removed and they were a decade ago or 20 years ago, is there a statute of limitations here?
Well, I think the Commonwealth's attorney is the one to make that judgment.
Are we, in a state that's motto is often a future worthy of our past, I have, why are we worrying about people who are no longer on our rolls? Within some recent period of time, that's gonna go back so far that it's gonna, if you really want to be efficient about a process, we shouldn't be thinking that people, the 900, what would be the earliest date that any of those 900 people would have done this? 1945 maybe? Well, no, might be in the
Okay.
60s.
I'm not sure where the
I don't know if
95.
they live in Virginia anymore.
I'm not suggesting that we.
I'm suggesting that if we have a process, we could easily have a process. It is, I understand the process going forward for some period of time, but digging,
Well, yeah, I'm not, the number I threw out was, the date was January 1st, 2022, which is not that long ago. If you think it should be 2023, I just think recent occurrences, that we should not start from ground zero right now.
do we have any
But-
idea what the statute of limitations is on this? Has anybody asked an attorney?
So probably, that's a good idea. Let's add
Uh-oh,
that.
a good idea.
Yeah, because all you need to do is find out what it is, and in the SOP, if all of the voting occurred prior to the statute, we could say we're not going to refer it.
Well,
We're doing,
let me make this suggestion.
we're doing a little bit of their work for them.
Let me make this suggestion so that what in the world was that?
That was me, sorry.
That was you again?
It's a persistent violator.
I have a suggestion. Rather than sit and write a policy at the board, we're gonna meet again in.
Yeah, no, I'm thinking Eric writes the policy
Okay, why
in
doesn't,
draft.
yeah, why doesn't he bring a draft back to us?
Yes,
To look at, on how this procedure might go forward, so that we know all these things.
that's part of my
So
motion.
Is that your motion?
It's already in there.
Okay.
I realize it's a lot of words here.
So let me see if I can say back to you what your motion is. That you're asking to have the registrar bring back,
I will take that as a motion.
a
Thank you.
motion.
I would do it
Worst
myself.
job you've done.
I do.
To bring back, to us a procedure for referring to, a procedure for, referral of people who have found to be not legal citizens but have voted, for referring them for appropriate action. And then if that's the motion and it comes back, we will have a policy then filled out that we can argue about these things.
A draft policy.
A draft policy, yes.
So moved.
Is that your motion?
So
No,
moved.
I didn't make
Second,
it.
I second your motion.
No, that's his motion. Do you second it?
I see.
Okay.
So the original motion made by Jeff did not give seconds.
No, there was no motion.
Well,
We just made that one.
it's a single motion, and it's that the registrar should draft a policy for
There you
referral of, I'm gonna call it false claims of citizenship, just because that's the title in the executive order.
Potentially false.
Potentially false claims of citizenship, among people who voted, where people have voted. And then we'll, at the next board meeting, so he will develop a draft policy and present it to the board at the next meeting. And, you know, you had sort of gotten me digressed on FOI, we can talk about that as well, you know, what
Well,
is,
he would know that in the policy.
yeah.
I mean, all these things that we don't know, we would actually,
He can
whether
find
we
out.
like them or not is a different thing, but we don't, there's a lot we don't know about this.
Yeah, I mean, so the policy would include an FOI component, so that in advance, we kind of know what the rules are.
So that we're not violating the privacy of folks.
Right, and also that you're gonna get FOI requests, so.
Just one question, dealing with that and the FOI request in the same policy at the same time might be difficult.
Oh, I think he means just FOI about releasing these.
I just think.
The policy, your
So
policy
you're
questions are
getting
a
me
whole
boxed
different
up
thing.
here. All I'm saying is that Eric should figure out, with Marty's help, what the FOI status will be of whatever documents are
It's
produced.
just that.
I think I was just, if it turns out that Marty isn't able to get all that done in time, maybe we just have policy.
That's right,
And deal with the FOIAs when they come in.
that's right. We can do it that way too. So contingency plan is.
Is there a second?
I second.
Whatever it was. We've heard the
Are we gonna
motion.
vote?
No, I'm gonna take a break here. We've heard the motion and the second, and let me be clear. This is a motion to have a policy, a draft policy come back on this issue, not to implement a policy. Okay, all those in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries.
Okay, I got a second motion.
No, you're out. Go ahead.
This will go even quicker.
No, it won't.
But, I mean, I kind of blamed you for the last one.
Please, you can blame me for the next one.
All right. The executive order also encourages, actually says the Department of Elect shall encourage and provide information to all registrars to alert voters to various requirements of Virginia law, including the fact, for example, that, you know, it's a crime to vote illegally. And I would, you know, the election is coming up. If elect, what I would, my motion is for this office to draft such a notice.
Or it would be for us to contact the elect, make sure they're.
Yeah. So, I'm doing it in the other order, but yes. Is to draft the notice, and it would include posting at the voting places as well as a slip to go in the mailed absentee ballots to those voters.
Maybe a problem with that,
That's-
we find
that's-
that we can't put in, there's something in the code that says you
Can't
cannot
put it in
insert.
there.
Then you're on the office ballot.
So, okay, this order speaks to providing it to the applicants directly. Maybe there's
That's-
another way
but
to
see,
do that.
But no, wait a minute. You wouldn't be applying for a ballot. We're talking registration here. And
I'm talking about the act, when they receive a ballot.
you're
they receive
assuming
a
that all
notice.
these people are already registered. Folks,
No, I'm just accounting for the part of the electorate that doesn't come in here, on election day. I'm saying those people need to get the same notice.
you mean the mail? in
The
mail?
people who are voting by mail are not going to see a notice at a polling place, because they are not going to the polling
But
place.
what I am going to tell you is that you can't put anything else but a ballot in the
That's a
mail
legal
out ballot.
requirement. What about on the envelope? Never, all right.
Yeah.
So maybe elect will figure this out, but what my proposal is that we have our own notice, at least at the polling places, unless elect provides a notice for us. it's ambiguous here whether they're going to do that. I think it would be easy to ask election if they're going to do
Okay,
that.
here's another one. Why don't we, this is another one that we don't know what we can and can't do. So why don't we find out where such a notice would be legal? And have that come back at the same time we have the other thing come back. Why don't we make that motion? Because there are a couple of things. I've had some experience with, and this is not, I have concern for people, for example, we register in the high schools, and there are sometimes possibly situations, more than possibly, where kids register because their friends register, and they don't realize it's illegal, and they've done it, and they come, and we've had experience with them coming in and taking themselves off the rolls. Now, the reason that I think that a notification that if you are not a citizen, you can't vote is not a bad thing for people to know. It is a good thing for not only us to know, but for the people who don't know they can't vote. We hear a lot of talking about all of that. But it's not a punitive notice, it's a notice that's also protective of people who can't vote and who may know it, because we register in all our high schools, for example. And they, just as there have been young men who thought because their friends were 18 by the time they voted a couple of years ago, that they voted, the same kind of thing. So why don't we find out what we're allowed to do, and then
Yes, let me make it more generally to address your point. What I think that what I'd like to do is ask the registrar to look at the executive order, which actually covers both voting and people applying to register, to look at the executive order and come up with a plan for implementing this proposal in conjunction with elect, which may end up doing the work for us. I hope they do. In which case we just do whatever elect guidance is.
absolutely.
So that's the proposal.
So, and then, just to get back to what the notice you'd like to have posted is, basically, don't get yourself in trouble, be aware that it's citizens can't vote, something like that.
Yeah, the executive order.
They may have some approved language.
The executive order cites a number of different code provisions, and probably too much to do, but, it needs to be a condensed statement. Just
Right.
put all these code provisions up, like, so many pages, but so someone's gonna have to come up with a condensation of this. I think elect may end up doing it. You don't think so? Well,
I think they might.
well, so this motion accounts for both possibilities. Either we do it, and if elect does it, we'll defer to them. If not, we'll use our own.
And then, so that would come back to us on our next meeting.
Which right now is the 6th.
And if we approve it, then the office would just print them up.
Yeah, voting may have started by then, but there's
No,
we
I
can
think
only
we're
do so
gonna
much.
meet on the 6th.
What's that?
6th of
Are we
September.
meeting on the 6th?
We're talking about that. That's the next topic that's not on the
Well,
agenda.
that's another issue.
Let's finish this.
Okay, well, let me just say, we can only do what we can do, so yes, it'll come back to us.
Okay. Is that your motion?
That's my motion.
This motion is we can only do what we can do.
Is there a second for that?
Is there a second?
No, that was part of my motion. Okay,
It's
I
been
trust
moved
you.
and seconded. Again, I'm going to make this very clear, that I want to see what we can do, and I think it's important that this is a motion to have information come back to us,
Right.
not an implementation. All those in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Okay, do we have anything else? Any other, that was your, there's nothing else on the agenda. We talked resource allocation. It's now time for public comment. And we have a couple here. As you know, there are, and Beth, if you'll see if there are people online, as you know, I see that it's 3 minutes. If you ask us things that are so entirely complicated that requires us to organize our thoughts and get the actual legal, the response, we will get back to you in the mail, but we certainly want to hear from you, or not the mail, my writing. We don't trust them. Although, so, you go first, Christine. Sure.
Okay. I'll
And
speak.
hopefully you'll shout loud.
I will shout loud. Could we ask two things regarding the General Registrar's report? One is that the NVRA data that is reported by the state includes numbers for registrations done by designated state agencies as a separate category that is pulled out. Discretionary state agencies, thank you. And third-party voter drives. So I'm asking.
It's like the human services. Those
Yes,
kinds
there's a
of
list of what the
Yeah.
discretionary
I
state
read it
agencies are.
someplace, and yeah.
It is a standard NVRA category. It is a number that is in there. I'm asking for purposes of simply aligning what Fairfax reports with what the state reports for NVRA data, and we are happy to send you the link, that you do a separate pullout for those registrations that are coming in from discretionary state agencies.
And third-party voter drives.
Okay.
And third-party voter drives are also a specific nationally mandated NVRA category. That's why the state does it. It would be great if you guys could look at that. We know the data is there in an aggregate form. I assume they're getting it from somewhere. You should be able to find it. That's one. I don't have a lot of time left.
Maybe under a different name?
Yeah, I think we are too.
But we're asking that you don't aggregate it or hide it in something else, but that it be pulled out. That's all.
Right, and-
Yeah.
And I think it's also reasonable to use the NVR vocabulary if that's possible.
It's the standard national vocabulary. Number two, can the registrar report, regardless of whether or not he does these referrals, can he do the research and report his finding in terms of numbers, just numbers, in the general registrar report? I understand that the ball is being kicked down the road a month here till September 6th. But in the meantime, can he proceed with research for numbers that come in that are current, right, recent ones, to see if those non-citizens who are self-reporting on a regular basis, right, have voted previously? Can he just do the research and report it at an aggregate level to all of us here, regardless, separate action, cut it away from the policy that you're still going to decide on in terms of legal referrals?
I don't see why not.
Well, I would want the registrar role.
Go ahead.
Yeah, registrar?
If the board wishes to have that information, I think we can certainly do it.
Well, I'd like to have it, I just don't know how difficult it is to get to.
Well, you're already doing the research. I mean, it's just the numbers. It would almost be the number, if we had a policy.
Well, we don't know what the numbers, we don't know what the framework of numbers are.
I think it would be best to wait because we're not sure what we're going to do.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's see what the category numbers.
Going forward, if this is a decision to do this, we can certainly include it in the future and all.
We're
Yeah.
gonna read fairly quickly here, so.
Yeah, the way I'm viewing this is, once we adopt the policy, there will be a number that will make sense to include in the report.
Yeah.
Okay, and I'm going to reclaim
Yeah.
5 seconds of my time if I could. One of the things in the executive order that is very specific as a new improvement is that they will be reporting to elect, and presumably this goes to the registrar, on a daily basis, not on a monthly basis, for self-declared non-citizens. So that means that the currency of this data, and therefore the volume of it would be smaller, but also the currency of those non-self-reported non-citizens coming into elect, and we hope in the hopper to you, would be things that could be researched then on an ongoing basis, simply to see if they have previously voted. My final comment is just, I would hate to see the wait for a final policy delay possible identification of non-citizens who have in fact voted. That's all.
Thank you. Greg?
Greg Brandon with FCDC. So this is the second year in which the new improved by mail voter requirement for last 4 and date of birth, year of birth is in effect. We've seen statewide that, there's been, a higher rejection rate of those, people doing by mail.
What rejection rate, is mail ballots coming back?
Yes.
Okay.
So because of lack of the last for the year of birth,
Right.
some people are returning the by mail ballot materials without that information and are therefore being rejected. And so I want to know, well, I'm hoping that there's going to be some voter education on that, because this is, again, the second general election, and a presidential year, we can expect perhaps a higher rate, and then just a higher raw number of these rejections. And if we can do some voter education with a mailing to highlight that, and these palm cards, to try to reduce that number.
Yes.
And I've got a few more things.
If I could just comment, I mean, the mail-in ballot that the voter receives has instructions to make it clear that they need to include this information, right?
We even have a screenshot or an image of a sample, the way it's supposed to be filled out, on the instructions.
Let me ask you-
Isn't there also a cure
Curing process?
Right, and they all get an affidavit, it's emailed to them, they get a phone call, it's mailed.
Is your data statewide or local?
Statewide, and it seems to indicate that persons of color, have a higher rate of.
Is it really
rejection.
broken down that way?
How would he
Broken
know?
down demographically?
Yeah, it's broken down.
Well, someone else might be able to speak to that.
Let me just say this. I think this office has an incentive to educate people, because on the back end, they have to call and cure or email them, which is more work. So I think everyone's aligned that the more we get the word out on how to do this right, the better off everyone will be. So I'm in general agreement with the spirit of that.
Yeah, let's put it on the list of things to publicize on.
It's more likely to be language.
More education upfront is what we're after,
Right.
and as a Democrat, I'm legally obligated to say these things.
Last year, we did a video that was linked on our website and it was put out on social media of how to fill it out. It's like a minute and a half.
You guys need a Twitter account.
And we're gonna do it again.
Secondly,
X.
Fairfax votes. Look it
Fairfax
up.
votes.
That's where it is. Fairfax
Let's
votes.
check on.
somewhat related, the Richmond Times-Dispatch has had a series of articles about the performance of their local post office.
Yes.
And I think Merrifield is pretty good, and I'm just saying that, well, I hope Merrifield is pretty good.
This, do we still have, we have two section centers, Richmond's post office and a section center in Midlothian, known pretty as much as one of the worst in the nation, that section center. We still have our relationship, do we not, with Merrifield?
Right, Fairfield, and the new Postmaster General at Fairfax
Fax.
she's
The
something else.
Postmaster
Right?
Pete.
Sean here.
Somebody,
Do it.
it might be something him, Sean.
Yeah.
Right, very straightforward. We have an outstanding relationship with the Postmaster who's been, she's been in place since '23. She takes actions above and beyond what's mandated by the Postal Service for her to reach out to what they literally refer to as the plant, right, at Merrifield to make sure that everything comes through. We have extra walkthroughs. We purposely make extra trips ourselves to go pick up. We don't rely upon the Postal Service making, if we're getting up close to deadlines or anything else. There's consistent communication. It's really worked out well. In November of last year, the post office made purposeful trips after their normal delivery routes to bring everything through. We were communicating with them on site if we weren't going in person, so it's absolutely that we're
It's
doing everything we
actually-
can.
It's actually improved since she's the Fairfax post office, that our stuff has to come from Merrifield through. And it's much
Two
more
more things.
consistent.
She
Yes.
actually makes trips. to
She
Merrifield.
makes trips, yes, lastly.
Two more things.
Oh, two more things.
I think Ambassador Hensel might appreciate this, but overseas voters who are returning home can have a little bit longer time getting checked in, at least that was the case a few years ago. It takes a little bit more to bring them into the system, or because they've been overseas voters
When they're voting.
and now
in
they're coming
person.
home
When they're voting in person.
and they're both voting in person, is there a wrinkle in that?
If they've been sent an absentee ballot, then they're gonna be marked as an absentee voter. And if we haven't received a ballot from them, of course, then they can vote a provisional ballot. Unless they bring in a copy of the ballot that they were emailed or they were sent, they're treated like.
But there's no
I
other
don't think
flag for
that's
those
his
people?
question. I wanna understand.
But
your
otherwise, checking them in, they're okay, they just checked in, correct?
question. Do we have reports of them being,
Just remembering.
oh, okay.
Finally,
Yeah, finally, that's the good news.
and I expected you to say this, Veterans Day is a Monday.
What?
Veterans Day is a Monday, so that means, expect some overtime, folks.
It's a Monday though.
And because that Tuesday is when you have to,
No.
what? That's been
Oh,
changed?
The law changed, yes,
Oh, you got it done.
yeah.
Congratulations.
Sounds like we're getting misinformation here.
Yeah. But
That's not
Veterans
finished.
Day is still a Tuesday, he's right on that, we're not gonna vote on that one. Anyone else, is there anyone online? Okay, anything else?
I have nothing.
So entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn.
I'll second that.
All those in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned at 5:37.
Long as ever.
Yes,
You run a tight
well, it's your fault.
I'm gonna lose.